Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So tonight's piece is something that is really close to just my heart. Uh, with the discussions about the necessity of having parents in the lives of children, this took on a new meaning when I became a father myself. Um, tonight, I had to deal with just some insecurities that my kids had before they went to bed. I got three kids, and just the role of being a father, parents, is to guide the children into the best future that they can possibly have. You're going to run into these bumps in the road where they need that reinforcement of the parents. And I always think of the role my father played in my own life. You know, just little things, big things. These are things that help the person get to where they need to go. It's the parent's role is to prepare the child for the future. So then this is a conversation that's been going on in the Black community for a number of years, and the discussion goes back and forth. You hear a lot of people saying, well, the problem in the Black community is because the Black father is not there. And there's other people who push back and says, look, just because the father is not with the mother, that does not mean he's not in the lives of his children. Recent studies have shown that African-American fathers are actually more involved in the lives of their children than fathers of other communities. So this is a myth. But I will say, I think it is more of a struggle when parents are separated and raising children, separately. So that is an issue that needs to be discussed. So then what happens, what happens when children grew up in a household where they don't have a father? That's a question that I would ask myself, because I had a father. I had a father who chose to accept a child that wasn't even biologically his. And so I often think to myself what my life would have been had this man had he not stepped in and assumed the responsibilities of being a father. So the piece today takes a deeper look into that. Well, I'm not even going to say a deeper look. It's just really just touching on the surface. It's a couple of articles that I just wanted to discuss because some numbers have come out recently that just show that Black women in Brazil are more likely in the last decade to become single parents than women of other ethnicities and races in Brazil. So today's story is called Absence of a Father Contributes to Crime, Trouble in School, Spending Time in Jail Among Young People. Now, nobody can say for sure that the absence of the father is the main reason that people end up getting in trouble, getting bad grades, ended up in jail, ended up in a life of crime. But it is oftentimes the studies find that, well, one of the things that some of these kids have or young adults and teenagers have in common is oftentimes they don't have a father in the home. So with this conversation getting bigger in the United States, I wanted to delve into, what's being said about the situation in Brazil. Okay, so let's just get directly into this article today. It's actually from two different sources. I just put the two together because I thought they complemented each other. So I'm going to just get directly into the story. Absence of a father contributes to crime, trouble in school, spending time in jail among young people. The lack of a father in the home increases a child's chances of getting into trouble at school by more than 14%, and a teenager's chances of getting into trouble with the law and ending up in jail by 18%. The data are present in U.S. government reports. In the original article, there is data from the Brazilian context. Paternal absence is strongly felt in poor communities that already face a challenging social context. In the Black community, its effects are perverse. In Brazil, according to the IBGE data, there are 20 million households headed by single mothers. Of these, 61% are headed up by Black women. Now, the IBGE is this is the the department of the government that studies, it's like the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics. So they constantly have numbers that just portray, give you a snapshot of what's going on in Brazilian society. This IBGE comes out with numbers all of the time, and some of them are pretty intriguing. It just, it tells you what's going on from a numbers perspective, with the Brazilian population. In 2018, the Public Prosecutor's Office of Sao Paulo found that 83% of adolescents who were involved in an infraction did not have a father figure at home. Why does this problem tend to be greater in the Black community? Well, there are many hypotheses. The biggest one is that the migration of Blacks to urban centers where religion and community sense are lower has weakened modern Black families. According to the writer and researcher Bell Hooks, it is wrong to assume that the father's participation should be summarized in the act of providing material goods. Although material support is a way of showing care, it can never replace emotional attachment and affection. She emphasizes the importance of a father's love for boys. Boys in particular need men to be role models. Loving and wise single mothers know they need to provide healthy male role models for their sons. One thing is certain, fathers are essential for boys. Black men are role models for Black boys. Being a role model for a human being is too important and powerful. Speech may instruct, but it is a good example that educates. So then this is the second part of the article. This is not second part of the article. It's actually a second article that goes a little bit more into what was suggested in the first article. So this one says the absence of fathers contributes to crime among young people is by Rafael Ramos, or Ramos, as they would say it in Portuguese. As a teenager, Vinicius, 18 years old, was apprehended 4 times in Pedreira Prado Lopes, one of Belo Horizonte's most violent agglomerations, for drug trafficking and illegal possession of weapons. Now, again, Belo Horizonte is the capital city and the largest city in the southeastern state of Minas Gerais. Worse still, he claims to have killed 2 people. These are serious experiences for a young man of such a young age, but they could have been less recurrent if there had been a father in his family. A survey carried out by the Santa Clara Socio-Educational Center at the request of the O Tempo website or newspaper shows that 45% of the 55 young people interned there were abandoned by their fathers as children. The rate rises to 69% after the child's involvement in the first crime. According to the State Secretariat for Social Defense, or SEDS, or SEDS, the sample reflects the reality in all 28 recovery centers in the state. The absence of the father at home, analyzes sociologist and professor at the Pontifical Catholic University of Minas Gerais, or what's called PUC Minas, Luis Sapori, increases the risk factor for the young person to commit an infraction. So listen to this again. The absence of the father at home, according to the sociologist, increases the risk factor of the young person in committing an infraction. This contributes to the young person having more access to the subculture of the street because in this situation, the person also has to take on the role of supporting the household, he says. In this scenario, Sapori continues, the chances of children coming into contact with places where crime thrives increase. This doesn't mean that a mother alone won't be able to educate her children, impose limits on them, and work to support the family, but certainly the need to accumulate duties makes the situation more difficult, she says. The professor explains that, faced with this situation, young people are more vulnerable to being lured, for example, into the world of drug trafficking and becoming involved in other actions in conflict with the law. In Western societies, the father figure has a greater symbolism. The father is the one who sets limits, he says. Vinicius, who we were talking about earlier in this article, Vinicius was abandoned by his father as a child. He says he has no desire to meet him because, according to the boy, his mother was abandoned at a time of difficulty. I want to kill my father, he says. According to Sapori, the imposition of rules is even more important in the transition phase from childhood to adolescence when people start to construct their values. Despite this, he says there is no cause and consequence of the relationship between the absence of a father and a teenager's involvement in the world of crime, but rather a combination of this factor with social, economic, and biological elements. That's really powerful when you hear the pain that this young man has. He says he would like to kill his father. It's not for me to judge, but I often wonder. I've seen a number of situations, specifically in the last few weeks, in involving public figures, entertainers, um, where a mother didn't tell their sons the whole story about what happens with their fathers. So I can't judge what this guy Vinicius feels about his father, but until a father is able to tell his story as to why he wasn't around, perhaps judgment should be held back. Now, I can't, maybe that's not fair to say because obviously this boy knows the effects of growing up without his father and seeing the struggle that his mother had in raising him and just trying to put food on the table. I'm quite sure he has real reasons to feel the way that he does. But every time I hear a story where a mother told her children a certain story about a father that wasn't true, and then the children only hear this story years later from the mouth of the father, I can't judge. How do we know that Vinicius knows the whole story about what were the reasons why his father abandoned the family? Maybe there were not legitimate reasons, maybe there were, but there's no way to know that until you know the whole story. I've heard these stories recently from everybody knows the rapper, Tupac Shakur. What has come out, what people have said about the story about who his real father was. That father has stepped forward and talked about that story recently. Well, in the last few months, I would say. There was another story that came out with the popular gospel music leader Kirk Franklin. I was just appalled when I heard the story about who his real father was and the lie that his mother maintained for basically all his life. The popular Black conservative in the United States, Larry Elders, tells a story about how he felt about his father. And he judged his father for many years until he became an adult. And he hadn't seen his father for years when he went back to meet his father. And he just wanted to tell his father how he felt. And his father sat him down, or they sat down, and the conversation ended up going on for like 8 hours, in which Larry Elder, he came to understand why his father was the way that he was, the struggles and challenges that he had throughout his life. This brought him and his father a lot closer because he understood, he let his father be able to reveal the person that he was and the struggles that he had in life. And this made Larry Elders come to understand his father a lot better because he allowed his father the space to explain what his life was all about. Now, in reference to the story about this guy we're talking about here, Vinicius, I don't, it appears to me that he's never heard this story from his father. Maybe something that his father would tell him could change his view of the years that he spent without his father. I can't say, maybe he's totally justified in the way that he feels, but I'm just saying if he doesn't know his father's side of the story, then I think it would do justice. I think his father would have the right to be able to tell him that story. I can't, like I said, I'm not going to judge that story because I've seen too many situations where the story about the father just wasn't true. They listened to everything that the mother told them and never heard the father's side of the story. So that's something that I always want to hear, Obviously, they probably changed the name of this guy to Vinicius just to protect his identity. I'm not sure. But I hope that one day, if his father is still alive and he's still willing to have a conversation, Vinicius will step to his father and have a conversation about where his father went. Why did he abandon him? It's a conversation that needs to be had whenever there's a situation like this. So this, I'm curious to know what you all thought about this story, these two articles that I put together. Definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. It's always intriguing to me to see a conversation that's going on in the United States and then you see something similar going on in Brazil. Now, the next article that I'm going to do is probably going to talk a little bit about the rise of, single Black mothers in Brazil. That's another thing that's been a hot topic for a number of years. But I'm looking forward to getting into that because we do need to tell both sides of the story here. Just curious to know what you thought about today's article. Drop a comment in the comment section there. Share this video, like this video. Consider subscribing to this channel if you've seen more than a few videos that were interesting to you. Definitely smash that notification bell so that you know when I post new videos. And with that said, I'm going to end this video here and request that you come back and check out my next video.